3, 2, 1, let's go.
It's supposed to be with like a hand, mate. It's supposed to use like a, you go 5, 4, and then yeah. And then we're in.
This is how we cue the start of a podcast.
No, I'm still recording on this one too. That'll go viral for just me later on. So welcome to the Shambles Podcast. How many intros are we in now?
Also known as the Imposter Podcast for the listeners at home.
I don't know. I feel like the Shambles is going to be the takeoff.
Shit, we've just renamed it on the fly. Episode 001 of the Imposter Shambles Podcast.
Yeah, let's just brief everyone in on what's just occurred. I'm running the Podcaster Pro setup, and it took me about 5 goes to actually get to what we're at now. So
one being you being confused with your name.
That's right.
That was actually the good one.
Started off well, but then the pressure, the pressure was building up. It was a bit hard, but we're here.
Good segue. And you are?
Fedora. And who are you?
Oh, that's just straight handball, is it? It's like, yeah, my name's Fedora. G'day, everybody. How you going? All right,
executive producer and soon to go pro on the mixing table. Oh,
don't mind that.
What do you got in your hand?
Just our first sponsor, mate.
Well, Savvy.
Just Savvy. They don't know that yet. But they'll
little nootropics brain booster.
Oh, I love it, mate. Bit of zero crash. No crash, zero sugar.
No crash. Delicious.
100% natural. Allegedly. I mean, I haven't seen them do it, so I'll take their word for it. It's on the advertising. Must be true. But we'll be speaking to Savvy. Met him up at Veteran Games. Good lad. And hopefully we get him on soon and see him in Coles at a place near you. Mate, sponsors are going to love us. How good's that? That's a good intro, surely.
It's the best intro we've had so far.
It's not a bad pitch.
So far, he says on episode 1 of the Shambles.
And for our listeners, who's drinking the Savvy?
That's right. That's where we were going with that, wasn't it? Yeah, Chris Burson. I'm using my whole name. That's too obvious. We'll go C. Burson or Chris B.
You've done it now.
Oh, well, I'm out. I've outed myself.
Burson,
unlike me, you're committed. We can't start again 2 minutes in.
Yeah. So anyway, Chris Burson, welcome. Have me along. What was I? Army 9 years, police 11. Was almost the Prime Minister. Briefly, there was a 6-week window there. I thought I was going to be the Prime Minister. Didn't pay out the way I thought it was going to be. And now I'm a radio jock, apparently. Was just a jock before, now I'm a radio jock. So
I think there's some places to explore in that. Like that intro, there's a lot to delve deeper into. Like,
oh, sure, we'll circle back. We'll revisit and
I think
pivot.
we'll be getting some imposter moments from Burso.
Oh, most of the time. Fake it till you make it's a big part of my life. And you, Al? Are you Al?
Yeah, I'm Al. Well, let's start at I've been a choco, a first responder, and a carpenter, let's say. And
a choco being?
A Army Reserve soldier. A chocolate soldier that melts under pressure.
Isn't it when the heat's on? I'm pretty sure that's where it comes on.
Yeah. Yep.
Is that what they say? Is it? I'm not. Yeah,
that's allegedly.
It technically got banned many years ago for saying choco, but it actually just did mean that chocolate would melt under heat.
There's other terms like tube. Tube was like hard on the outside but soft on the inside.
But most chocos embraced the term and took it on for ourselves. But yeah.
Oh, the main reason we hate it is because you guys only had to turn up one day a week, and
we got the best of both worlds.
Yeah, someone's like, "You're in trouble. I need you to come in here and paint rocks next week." And you're like, "Wouldn't have thought so."
Yeah.
Look at term of endearment, right?
Exactly.
Oh yeah, 100%. We didn't hate them.
Yeah, like
we were just jealous.
There's a purpose for them. They're needed. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the very basics of who we are, which we'll no doubt be diving into a lot in the near future.
And I guess, obviously Fedora, that's not my real name. Kind of behind the scenes.
Yeah. Well,
just play some tunes again, mate, so we know where we're at.
We'll work on our sound effects.
Yeah. Oh, you don't know what the sounds are, do you?
No.
Oh, this is going to be great.
This mixing table is just going to keep on giving.
The good thing is I can edit things out later in post-production, like when I just fucking go on a tangent.
Yeah.
So, there was a tangent that I edited out post-production.
You probably didn't need to bring that up. Could have just edited it out and then...
Now you got to edit that out as well.
You got to edit out the second edit out.
Perfect.
But we're here today doing actual episode 001 because we have been doing a few things, but we wanted to set the tone for what this podcast is actually about.
Actual episode? What are we up to in actual episodes?
I reckon it's probably about episode 9. We've had a couple of throwaways and a couple that are definitely coming up. But this is the whole point, is that we want to make sure that we're showing what it was like at the beginning. We're not really editing all of this learning phase out. This is just part of the experience.
Oh, mate, I'm really looking forward to the day that we release the Shambles podcast, the very first.
Yeah, the very first podcast was very funny.
Absolute rock show.
Yeah, I listened back to it. It was an absolute shambles. Like no one's spoken to a microphone.
Mate, 2 out of 3 people didn't have headphones. I'm running the machine without headphones, so I'm playing music going, is that working?
And what we didn't realise, a lot of people have done speaking before, but sitting down with headphones and this microphone in front of you, it's quite a different dynamic. I found I was really focused on where I was in relation to the microphone, and it translated to some pretty poor recording.
Yeah, and I can definitely say I'm a choco in the podcasting industry. Like the talking into the microphone is probably one of the weirdest and hardest things to get used to. You find yourself getting lost in what you're talking about just for the sake of it. But anyway, we're going to get there. You know, we're trying to make this one the first one because we want to present something that's authentic, but also something that's going to be professional enough that is going to keep people listening to the 2, 3, 4, 5, 500, hopefully.
If you chuck the music one up to midway, that way when you press a sound effect, it'll work, because otherwise you'll be like me in the
I like this one.
Yeah, so back when we first started the intro, good segue. I was hoping you were going to go with that one because it's one of the purple ones. I didn't know which one it was. I think the other one's like crickets.
I'm a quick learner. Let's.
Yeah. So going back again. There we go. We're working already. So going back to when we started, we initially ran with where we were going to go with it, and then it quickly divulged into the fact that I think there was 3 different podcasts that we were looking at running with. So even though I think we've had about 9 episodes now, and we've dropped probably 6. one straight up being the Shambles with no headphones, no audio setup, no anything. And like, oh, look at that sparrow over there eating a butterfly. Like there was just a whole bunch of schmozzle going on. But I mean, now we've got, even this is weird, but because it's a little bit more, we're probably a bit more comfortable with how things are going. We've now got 3 cameras in here, 2 being phones. Like we're not amazing professionals. Like we're not sponsored by anyone just yet. Hint, hint to Sony or anyone who wants to get around us. Oh, what do you got there,
Savvy
Fed?
cracked.
Passion fruit savvy.
Nice.
Oh, he loves it. And people are just going.
But I think to your point, so we ironically
Sorry,
said
just
we
going
weren't
to drink my lemon lime.
Oh, you're having another sip?
This is going to be such a rock show.
Just some throughout product placement going on.
Yeah, if you can turn it just
a little pictures.
That's better.
Ironically, we said we weren't going to specialise too early and we were going to see where things hit. And then I think quite quickly doing a few episodes, we realised, no, we do have a niche and we need to drill down on that a little bit.
Yeah. Do we want to go with the niche?
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, okay. Fair handball. Yeah. Mate, you're the professional. I don't know if everyone's, I don't know that anyone's aware because Al didn't really finish his intro, but he's also a YouTuber with over 10,000 views in a single video.
Pretty broad term, YouTuber, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, massive. That's not a niche on its own. Anyway, so back to what we were talking about with imposters. A lot of us have found that in our previous jobs, you go into something. It's not even just work. It's pretty much life in general. Like you want to buy a house the first time, like Fedora has a biological female wife.
I hope.
This is you should have checked.
I haven't DNA tested it yet.
I don't know that. Oh God, we're just going to wrap this up.
I actually have. I actually have DNA tested it.
Anyway, so and she was talking about being a mum for the first time and how much of a massive deal that was. And then obviously she's been our single civilian basically that's listened to it. And I say civilian like we're podcasters. We're not real war veterans here. But as a person who's not part of our lifestyle, job choices, et cetera, history, it was interesting that she actually was like quite well. There you go. There's a like and a together. That'll be fun for you to edit out later. But she was wow, and another one. And then she was just went straight into. I'm just going to do them all the time now because I'm thinking about it. But see, she was mentioning the fact that her being a mum at the start was the same feeling that we were talking about with certain jobs that we went to. And even though our jobs might have been, I had to cut someone down from a roof who'd hung themselves, the feeling going to that and not being confident or even knowing that you're ready for the situation you're going into, you're probably not. And even though you may have done 9 months training at the academy, or you may have done a 4-year degree, or, you know, whatever other short course, any other thing that you've done, even though you've done the training, until you've done it, you still don't feel like you're actually able to do the job or deal with the crisis or whatever the situation may be. And that was a real eye-opening thing for me, was that we sent it to her just to see if it was just an absolute rock show that no one had ever listened to. And the fact that she was interested and then was like, well, I felt like that when I was a single mum. And I think that...
She's never been a single mum, by the way.
Well, I mean...
A new mum?
A new mum.
Yeah, well, I mean, what's she doing while you're here?
What are you thinking about anyway? Don't you worry about that. She's married for life.
Well, you did well to lock that down. Punching well above his weight, I'll give you the tip, Al. But yeah, the fact that she was interested, and then I was like, well, this pod doesn't need to just be emergency services, doesn't just need to be army or whatever. The fact that a single mum, the fact that a mum who's had a kid has, I'm just sitting across fingers.
Cross leg too, cross leg.
The fact that, you know, she felt that way, we could then have her on, because that'd be obviously something we have no idea about, is the nerves that would come across having a baby, carrying it, because we always see oh, it's so lovely, you know, you look radiant, all that sort of thing, but you don't really go through and you would have been through on the other side of it, so you might have a lot more insight than we do about the nerves and et cetera that she would have gone through. But it's very interesting to see that imposter syndrome isn't just, because I was very narrow-minded and I was thinking it's mainly about us not feeling like we can do stuff, and then the transition out from army or police, then you start going, can I even be a manager at Coles over the night shift? Because I've never done it before. It's like, sure, I can run a job where someone's, potentially cutting themselves or trying to stab me or wants to suicide by cop, or, I talk someone down off a roof as a negotiator or whatever. But trying to actually get a normal job afterwards I was like, well, what qualifications do we have?
Yeah, well, do you think it's fair that we might have assumed ourselves that imposter syndrome was all about?
Oh, there we go. That's what he's done. He's pressed all these buttons. Press that one.
You're boring him, so he muted you.
God.
Well, it was a monologue for a long time, so there's only one way to cut it out.
Do you think that we assumed it had to have some sort of life or death involved in it for us to register it as imposter syndrome, just because of the frame that we had for it?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was just more that was our wheelhouse. That was what we were safe with. Happy to talk to veterans about going places, doing stuff. Happy to speak to first responders because we've been to those jobs, and there's that whole, that whole community, that whole environment where there's a shared experience. Even though you weren't at the same job, you still have shared experiences. But if you've gone through like Kapuka, for example, or infantry blokes will tell you Singo, or engineers went through at Moorebank at Steel Barracks and stuff, they've all got a shared experience that links you together. Whereas if we're talking to a mother who's just given birth, I don't have that shared experience, but now we do through the whole imposter thing, which I never would have associated that with.
I think it's become pretty evident as well that we'll be able to get a lot of different imposter guests from all walks of life that will be able to give us some insights into how they prevailed through their imposter experiences. And that probably leads to one of the aims of the podcast. Is a big part of it will be getting on guests that have probably achieved pretty big things in life, but have had struggles, whether they communicated them or not at the time. And I think that's another sort of myth that I want to see it break down too, is that a lot of your teammates at the time are going through the same things as you, but they just don't say it out loud until you've all moved on, and then you realise, oh, we're all thinking that. But sometimes ego gets in the way of having those conversations. So.
Why don't we talk about the concept of what we're trying to achieve? So Imposter Podcast to me was something that identifying that imposter syndrome is real in everyday life. I feel that, and as Berso's eloquently and at length stated, that it's something...
What a backhanded compliment.
But it's something that we all face day to day as humans. And the kind of objective and the mission that we've got is we want to highlight that you're not alone in suffering imposter syndrome, to the extent if it's not as significant in your life, or it's to a point where it kind of breaks you down into some kind of mental health, depression or anxiety, or anything further, and that we're able to then give people solutions or opportunities to then learn new techniques about how to overcome imposter syndrome, and then also to better their own mental health and to a point where they're back into the swing of society, back into the fold where they're, where they feel like they're able to achieve new things. And that's something that we've discussed at length. And I think also like we've a model of the podcast is setting challenges for ourselves and for our listeners. But the purpose of those challenges is to get people to get out of their comfort zone, overcome being the imposter, and to own it and to be a better person.
No, exactly. And often we won't do things for ourselves per se, but if a buddy challenges you to do something, you're accountable to them. It gives you a whole sort of group motivation to see it through, and that there'll be, in a sense, repercussions or some bullying if you don't see it through. But that's all. We talk about that in a positive sense, that it will get them engaged to do things.
I think it's also a spectrum. Like I know, Fed, you're very keen on the whole dealing with depression and the mental health side of things and trying to get people out of maybe a hole. It also goes the other way where you can be fine but still not chase a goal that you're going for because you just don't think you can. A thing I like to reference is where a lot of people talk about their circle of, or their sphere of influence, whichever way they want to go. And Buddha and monks and stuff would be more about just going, whatever you have currently, be happy with what you've got and do that. Whereas I like to think of making a bigger circle, and both are fine depending on which mindset you want to go, because just having more influence, more money, more power and all that sort of stuff is not going to make you happy. Like that's not the end goal. So if you can be happy with what you have and you don't need to keep reaching or whatever, then great. But if you had a goal when you were younger that you've always wanted, and then you just found yourself now, you've got a mortgage, you've got your kids, you're in a job now, but you have to stay in that job because you don't have the money to leave because you've got to make all the repayments and things. It's good that you can still challenge yourself to do things and you can still have a goal that you want. It might be harder. Like I've heard Joe Rogan talk about it, where any spare time you have, you put towards that. And then eventually your side hustle might become your goal that you always wanted. But so many people I've seen along the way just went, it's too hard now. I've been doing this for 10 years. I've done this and done that. Can't do it. And a lot of that is imposter syndrome, where you think you can't do something because now you are a soldier or you are a cop or a fireman or a teacher or whatever your chosen profession is that isn't meeting your requirements spiritually or emotionally, whatever else it is. And then you thinking, I can't do it. And obviously my life at the moment's been a bit of a rock show since leaving the police, because like I haven't got anything sturdy. I haven't got anything else. But on the flip side of that, I now also am aware that I can do more stuff. And obviously having you guys here now is also another thing. Like you've started a YouTube channel, Al, whereas obviously you're still super keen to stay where you are. But where we go from here is really, it's exciting because it's new. And talking about sponsors, if we'd spoken about this 2 months ago and having a podcast, we would have just laughed at each other. Whereas now it's like, well, the worst that can happen is no. I could throw out an email and the worst that can happen is no. So even if nobody listens to us, at least we had a crack. We're miles ahead, like the man in the arena. It's like, I don't really care what the critics have to say or whatever else it is. The fact that we've had a crack puts you above everybody that never had a go.
We're modelling what the whole imposter thing is about right here. We do feel like imposters doing this, but one of the key takeaways, and we'll be trying to interview top performers from all sorts of industries, is that they all feel imposter syndrome, but the distinction is that they push through it and they keep working, and then they'll get imposter syndrome at another level. But we want to make sure that we're discouraging people from limiting themselves by that feeling. It is natural that any professional, self-reflective person is going to feel that, but the difference is that they push on despite it and find ways to step up to the next level. So hopefully we can step up to the next level.
And I just want to ask you, Al, because it's quite clear what my motivation is, and Burso was able to highlight it too. Like I like to focus on getting that person out of the rut or focusing on men's mental health, and this being a way to do that. Obviously, I'm not limiting my goals to just men, but obviously we are men. We don't really understand women that well and how we're going to engage with them and speak directly to them. But what's your motivation for doing the podcast? Because you've obviously got the YouTube, which has been mentioned. So you've got a lot of balls in the air, work, YouTube. That's got to be time consuming. But what motivates you to do this?
Yeah, look, there's a lot of curiosity from the guest side of things. I just love having conversations with people and finding out what they're about. So I'm really looking forward to some of the guests that we'll have coming up and diving into their life experiences. And really big for me is also that challenge piece where, I've referenced all the time, I've had to have time away from work as a first responder. I've tried initiatives to engage people, get them moving again through work cover and other things like that. So I really want to see this challenge space. For me, it's being accountable to others is what I've seen gets people in the rut moving again. So I'm really keen to see if we can get a bit of an imposter community behind each other and challenging them to do like building and reshaping type activities. There's going to be some fun and, some cultural sort of things in there as well, but like underwriting it's that we get people out who otherwise are probably just stuck on the couch and not doing too much.
I think an easy thing that people can run with is the goal setting and the lifting yourself is like a big fish in a small pond. Like you can sit there and do whatever, but there's a massive world out there, and a lot of it's when people travel, like they travel the world, and then all of a sudden their whole viewpoint is different. But that can change with other little things, like you going to a Huberman session or listening to a podcast with Tony Robbins or whatever else it is, and you might ignore 12 hours of it, but there might be one line in there that just makes you go, you know what, that's just opened my eyes to a whole bunch of different stuff that you can do. And then from there, the world can be your oyster. So, or even if you just have a crack and you jump on some app that does commercials, or and then you get a commercial and they go jump on here, they do an audition, and you just stand in the background, you get 10 grand for that. It's like that's a day's work, 10 grand that you never would have done if you hadn't put yourself out there, and that 10 grand you can now use to do a course that you wouldn't have been able to pay for before. So you taking a step towards your goal is so much more beneficial to you than just thinking about it the whole time and just going, I can't do it. Because you may not be able to do it. Let's be honest. Most people can't do stuff. Like otherwise, everyone would be successful. But if you don't have a crack in the first place, I guarantee you, what is it? You miss 100% of shots you don't take.
Yep.
And the things that I've found so far is if you do something, the closer you get to where you are, the less of a step it seems. So it might be 4 kilometres away. If you start walking, now it's 3.5, and it doesn't look so crazy anymore.
Yep. Just breaking down the big challenges and just being consistent, little steps at a time. The other part we've talked about, which I'll throw myself on the fire here, but our demographic is, like I'm basically 40, single male. We need to, there's a lot of things happening now where your friends are married. There's not a lot of activities to go to. So, again, I'll submit that I went to Andrew Huberman on my own on Saturday night, which is not the way I'd really like to experience things. And unfortunately, those tickets were sold before the three of us were getting together with this podcast. But that's another frame for it, is just to get some of those isolated people out and maybe give them a bit of a community to do these like-minded activities with, because nearly all experiences are better shared than done alone.
And it's interesting doing this experience together with you guys. It's kind of like we're all like our group chat blows up all the time, and I already find that my passion about this has increased just with the three of us. So I can't imagine what it would be like to have a whole community behind us, and that drives us to do challenges and gets them out, and they might get like that little bit of a buzz, like how I've got coming in, sitting down, setting up things. Obviously, I was a bit nervous at the start. But I've kind of come back into my own skin again. But yeah, I think having that kind of the people coming in and backing us up and joining us along for the ride will be a really rewarding reward from what will occur. Sure.
I think there'll be some milestones along the way as well that you really need to get around to embrace. Like the first time we have a download from someone that we don't know and we didn't share the link with ourselves. That'd be a massive thing. The first time somebody from Argentina listens, I don't know why Argentina. Oh, because of Caruana. I was like, I don't know why I thought of Argentina out of nowhere.
The interview we haven't done yet.
Yeah, that's right, from BL. Look, if we have a sponsor, for example, that'll be a massive thing. If we have someone who's just like, look, here's an affiliate code, that's a massive thing. If we get 100 downloads, that's a massive thing. Like 100 random people that we've never spoken to before, that's huge.
Yeah.
I think if we run an Instagram page and then somebody from America shoots us a thing saying, "Hey mate, heard your podcast," huge.
But the other thing that's going to happen, and it happened to us on YouTube this week, is we got our first troll. So in a sense, you could say you've
so
made
good.
it when you get your first troll. But I'll be honest, like we took it a little bit hard, but we had to really step back and think. We've had, maybe 500 comments now, and this is the first sort of bad troll.
What was it? Can you say what it is?
Well, literally, it made us feel like an imposter because he said, "What are your credentials to be telling people what they should do with their dirt bikes?" And it went on this ramble, and we sort of went, "Well, what are our credentials?" But it's like, well, hang on, YouTube doesn't ask for credentials. It's a peer-reviewed video system, so you would just get no views. But it really got us in our own sort of OODA loop about it, thinking, wow, should we be doing this? But when we revisited things...
For people who don't know what an OODA loop is.
Oh, going to have to remember the acronym now. Orientate...
Observations and all that stuff. Basically, an OODA loop is your train of thought.
Yeah. You get in your own head and you can't get out of that sort of cycle of rumination. So
I didn't know what an OODA loop was. I was just going to roll with it.
Yeah, sorry. We've got to avoid acronyms.
Another choco thing,
And it's even worse when I know the acronym but not what it stands for.
You mean when you used to treat it?
Yeah. But all that is to say that it literally made us feel like imposters and had to question what we were doing. But when we revisited it, our welcome video, we do disclaimers through it. We're constantly telling people, we call ourselves buffoons in reform, like we're just everyday people doing it. So by revisiting that whole process, we kind of settled ourselves again that no, every other comment's been positive. People are saying, oh, we've wanted a channel like this. But it still made us feel like imposters and question the whole thing.
The thing I find funny about that is the fact that your intro, I've watched all your videos. Like most of your views come from my house I just put it on repeat because I'm trying to get you famous. But
pump it up.
Yeah. I'm surprised I don't have it on in the background at the moment. Hard enduro for those. It's UN. You won't find it. I've talked to Al about this. It's too hard to find. You'll have to click on it twice. Anyway, but your intro video is legitimately you going, we have zero qualifications. We are just two blokes who ride a bike on weekends occasionally. Do not listen to our advice if you don't want to. Like you can't have a bigger disclaimer than that. But it's interesting to see that, like, that troll thing to me would have just been funny because I would have been like, I would have just said refer to first video.
Yeah, and we did a bit of a tactful response to that, which I learned a lot from your interview Back to the Future about handling online criticism. But in the end, it turned out good because it made us reevaluate and confirm why we're doing it. And we are imposters. It's literally what we're doing with that as well. We're just everyday people showing people. But every other comment essentially says, oh, you guys are like me. That's great that you get out and do that. Oh, if you guys are doing that, I reckon I could do it too. So it's just hard. I've got a bit of a thin skin sometimes these days, but it's just the imposter thing is we recalibrated and we pushed through it. And now we're like, actually, that comment was a positive because we've learned something from it and we've, in a sense, stepped up to now we have a troll, we've made it.
But it also reiterates the fact that you did lead with that. So it's not like you've lied to them.
Yeah.
At no point have you, it's not stolen valor. You haven't taken, it said, oh, we're mechanics of 55 years.
Mm.
Yeah.
And actually we found out he'd commented on about 4 of our videos. So he's a long-time watcher. So we're still getting views out of him. So
mate,
it's like,
100%.
Well, maybe we are credible because he keeps watching them. So I don't know what he's asking.
Yeah. Thanks to Al's first troll.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching.
You don't want to name drop him?
Nah, he was from North America.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, that's good news. It wasn't like Travis Strana or something.
Nah. Well, I mean, look, what you naturally do is you click on them and see what their channel's about. And
yeah. And then you
sound
shadow
a bit egotistical, but we had way more credibility than his channel did. So,
Oh, so he's a channel.
Well, yeah, he'd posted some videos.
Oh, you're going to start some like international beef between YouTube? That's amazing. I'm here for this. I love a bit of online beef. It's great.
It's how it always starts as well. Well, why don't we segue into we've discussed the challenge. So let's segue into Burso. You want to set the first challenge for Al? He has foreshadowed this, but anyway, let's give this a go. I'm going green. Oh, no.
That's a nice ironical sound effect there.
The old... Are you just going to double it up, eh?
Well, I want one, my own want one.
Oh, yeah, fair enough. Well, now you've learned about it. Tony Robbins, mate, doing a 3-day event. May have some bonus stuff. But, I think it's 3 hours a day, 6 a.m. till 9 a.m. I think if you take the package, you can probably watch it in your own time. But so it'll be a Tony Robbins doing his motivational speaking thing. I don't know how many people are going to be doing it, but was it Rise Up?
Don't look at me.
I don't know why I know this, but it's the Time to Rise Summit.
That'd be the one.
It's called?
That'd be the one that I've surprised you with.
So what do I actually have to do?
So just sign up, register, obviously, and then where you want to go with it for. If you want to do it at the 6 a.m. or if you want to do whatever, basically just do his summit and then see how you feel after that, and then come back with lessons learned. I would suggest.
So I would imagine, like many people listening to this podcast, that just referencing Tony Robbins kind of makes me cringe. I guess we all probably know what he's about a little bit. Participating in one of these sort of things is exactly why you've challenged me, no doubt. Is it something that makes me a bit uncomfortable? It's a bit of a what is his stuff? Sort of getting up and getting involved and jumping around is kind of his thing, isn't it?
Well, we were previously talking about the Theo Von and Tony podcast, and that's where this came from. But on there, Tony and Theo together, that was amazing to me. That was an amazing podcast, definitely worth listening to. It's on Theo's thing on YouTube and podcasts. I'm assuming if you listen to you listen to podcasts, but definitely worth getting around that because he does all the same stuff that he does normally without the happy clapping part of it. But part of it is he talks about why he does it. It's an immersive experience, and we'll talk about it after you've done it.
Once I have some insight.
Yeah, once you've got some insight as to how that works and why it would work, and the difference between doing it online versus doing it in person would be quite substantial, I'm going to guess. But yeah, when he comes back in future, we'll probably. I would love to do it in future, but I mean, what is it, like $5,000 to do a weekend or something with him?
And everything I've seen about Tony Robbins is cringy as, like, get up, hug the person next to you, clap, shout out, I'm the best. It's all really cringy.
You sort of see all those testimonials of how it changed my life in one day or this sort of stuff.
And he's got that voice like, everybody, like.
You've got it.
Massive hands, and you think, who's this weird guy? But there's got to be something in it because
the whole
so many
dude's
people
massive.
do it.
I'll put it to you though, with the cringe, like we say it's cringy, but that's because we don't want to do it. It's not so much that it's cringy, right? Those people think that's amazing. They don't think it's cringy. So it's something you don't want to do is cringy to you. Whereas, if I was to say get up and hug Al, you'd be like, that's weird, mate, not doing it. But it's like, no, he's giving me looks. Doesn't really come across.
Like I want to.
Yeah, I'm getting the sex eyes out of him again. But, like those things are, and they'll do that on the neg course where they'll get you to go up and speak to a stranger. Like, go speak to that guy.
Negotiator course?
Yeah. Did I say neg, did I? Yeah, it's because I'm cool like that. You're welcome.
Negging's another thing that was from the dark dating world.
Yeah. Yeah, it started off there. Now it's a thing we've embraced.
Was that like negging? You didn't say pegging, did you?
No.
Oh, because you said it was like hugging.
Are you leaving that in or? It's going to be an awkward.
It's the wrong kind of imposters.
Going to be Anyway, what I was getting at beforehand was that's where the challenges come into it. Because if you were to do something cringe, that's something you don't want to do. But it's not really costing you anything. For you to get up and clap your hands, realistically, who cares? That's all in your own head. Like Hillsong Church and stuff. Those people love being there. I have no interest in being there. But they're up and about. It makes them happy. Them singing and stuff brings them joy. Me thinking it's cringe just means I don't understand where they're coming from.
And that's probably me speaking as an imposter, thinking I'm being judged for clapping where everyone else in the room is clapping.
Yeah.
But I think everyone's looking at me for some weird reason. And I've got this fear within me that I'm going to be judged, which is pretty much what imposter syndrome comes down to, fear of being judged by other peers, by yourself or whatever.
And a lot of that's falsely being judged because no one else really cares. If you go to Tony Robbins and everybody else in there is up and about, clapping their hands, going off. And
I'll be the weird one who's not participating.
And then you're the guy sitting down on the chair. Now you're feeling like an imposter because you're not getting involved. So it's funny, like I understand where he's coming from with the immersive experience because if you're there for 12 hours, you would be hard-pressed not to get involved with them because by the end of it, you're going to feel that pressured into doing what everyone else is doing. Then, now you're going to actually embrace it. You'll find that there's heaps of different people saying much the same stuff.
Yeah.
So like Goggins, for example, like do something that sucks every day.
Yeah.
But the way he says it appeals to different people. Like
yells at himself in the third person.
Yeah, like Fedora doesn't want to hug around a person and clap, But if he's like, do something that sucks, he's like, yeah, I'm hard. That's what I'm doing. Stay hard, you know? Or someone else might be like, oh, I've had a really crappy day today. And then all you hear in the back of your head is good. And you're like, oh, thanks, Jocko.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, but they're all saying the same stuff. It's like,
but those guys speak to us because of what background we've got in our employment or previous employment. And that's why they resonate with us, because we identify with them, which is a perfect challenge for Tony Robbins, because he's the opposite. He's the one that doesn't make you work hard or anything like that. It's all about looking inside yourself to find the positivity instead of working hard for it.
And I mean, aren't we lucky in that sense that we had Theo Von interview him, because that's probably what's opened our eyes a little bit and made you think of this challenge to have a trailer trash ex-crackhead interviewing Tony Robbins.
I thought you were talking about yourself. I was like, I'm like, what a revelation.
But he looked at me and I thought, oh,
I had a misspent youth.
Well, I did say it's a single mum before as well. So we're all going trailer park.
Don't bring up that.
But the perspective that like Theo gave and the way he interviewed probably has completely changed. We would have just switched off Tony in any other context. But I think all of us watched or listened to that interview. And it's very interesting.
I've had heaps of YouTube videos where there's clips of Tony in the background. You know, they're on with some athletic dude, or there's some soldiering going on, or whatever else it is, and Tony's yelling in the background doing whatever. Now there's Eric Thomas, there's Goggins talking, there's Jocko talking. They're all just clips of people saying different stuff. And eventually, one of the biggest thing that I've found in motivational videos that resonated was stop listening to this and do something. Yeah. And I was like, oh, yeah, right. He's right. I'm literally procrastinating listening to motivational stuff. And then
if you swipe through one more, you're not going to actually get up and do anything.
Yeah. But there was, I can't even, I wish I had it saved, but there was literally a motivational channel that was basically telling you to stop listening to motivational channels and go and do something. And I thought that was if you guys, however many more of these things you listen to is another 5 hours you're not doing something about it. Like, you are better off just starting something, doing it and failing, learning, and then getting ahead. So that's sort of where I was. Yeah. And with Theo talking to Tony, I was like, well, if he's feeling the same stuff and he's talking to Tony and doing whatever, I'm like, there's no reason we can't be doing it, because he's feeling all the same stuff we are. And he's pointing out the fact that, you know, he's had a crappy upbringing and he's done all that sort of thing. It's like, I haven't even had a crappy. If I've started off with with a better hand, why am I doing worse than him? Yeah. You know, what are we doing here? So I was like, well, we may as well just have a crack.
And that probably is a good segue into, you said the man in the arena earlier, and I had to Google it. I was like, what is he even talking about?
Have you never heard that?
Never ever.
All right.
Theodore
Roosevelt.
Yeah.
So I've just brought it up on my phone for Burso to read out to close out the pod.
Oh, okay.
Because, you know, this feeds into the imposter kind of mentality, but this is the exact example of what we're trying to do in challenging that imposter, getting the imposter the fuck out of our lives and bringing in,
Are we swearing on this pod?
The crowd says yes.
When it's required.
Really wish you would at least press the buttons before we started so you knew what you were pressing.
So have a crack, Burso. It's all written out.
The man in the arena. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how strong the man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes out short again and again, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails whilst daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who never know victory nor defeat.
Alrighty, let's phase out, guys.
That's episode 001, and we'll step forward into the future.
Are we phasing or fading? It's a fader you're using.
Let's haze.
We're hazing.
And headbang.
Turn the tunes up a bit more.
See you next time.
Yeah, I like that.
Thanks,
or
everyone.
hear you next time. I'm going to have to get better at that.